Aegis Dynamics takes over the Bevic Conference Centre on the third day of the Invictus Launch week here on Star Citizen. I am Draken and this is the DrakenWerks, and we are going to dive back into this as we go and have another look at what has taken over and changed in the centre on the third day here. They are such lovely ships here. We can see the Eclipse. I managed to get a little bit of a free flight out on one of them. I haven't had much chance to take advantage of the free flights so far in the Invictus Space Week, so it was nice to get behind the cockpit on this one. I've never flown an Aegis craft before, and it was really nice to actually use. So here's what the centre looked like on the third day of it. You can see that the previous days had all been taken out, and we come straight in and we are greeted by the lovely sight of that Eclipse stealth bomber there. The Eclipse stealth bomber, I said this on my last video as well, I don't quite see the purpose of a bomber being meant for civilian purposes. I suppose in this sense many of the bombers are being used for attacking capital ships, but again, how often our capital ship is meant to be sort of attacking from sort of enemy components and stuff like that. But still, nonetheless, it's a really nice craft. I love the way you enter into it as well here. So, I mean, this is when I was taken out for a free fly. I can show you how the cockpit opens up and enables you to get inside. And then there's like this really lovely blue glow inside once you get in there. I absolutely love that sort of violet hue that it's got there. It does change once you start powering it up, but it does just look absolutely awesome. Makes it feel really like a proper stealth bomber. Bit of a limited field of vision, but then you kind of expect that from a stealth as well. So you can forgive it for that, but it's a nice craft. I quite like it. You come through then into the main hall here, and as you can see, once again they have opened it right the way up, and there are quite a few craft here, and in fact there are quite a lot of craft to get around with the Aegis stuff. Here we got two examples of the Sabre. On the left is a normal Sabre. This is a light fighter that is built by Aegis Dynamics. What I quite like actually with Aegis, I much prefer the design of the Aegis stuff over that of Anvil, which we saw on the last video. I just think the lines look sleeker. I think the cockpit's nicer, and when I was flying the stealth bomber as well, it was the Eclipse stealth bomber. It was also much nicer to fly as well. So I got more to grips with the HUD and everything else on that. The second one here you're seeing is the Sabre Comet. That was a specialist version as well from the Master of Flight series. Has a sort of like dogfighter loadout. We've moved on now to this one. It's the Aegis Retaliator. It's a heavy bomber. This is a bit of an odd design on the outside. It looks like at first, I'm sort of in two minds about the outside design, whether I like it or not. It's a missile boat. It's designed to deliver a large amount of payload, basically a heavy bomber, large amounts of missiles. And it's really got this really nice military feel. Feels much more militaristic than even like say the Anvil stuff that we saw yesterday. You walk through here and it sort of feels partially naval in many senses. I sort of get that naval feeling from the way the doors open up and they've got those little lips at the bottom there, and you can sort of see the big bomb bays at the side there, and these small confined corridors as well, with everything sort of having its place but also all being exposed and everything as well at the same time. And then you've got just dozens of turrets on this thing. Like there's a turret on either side here as you come back here, and then as you go around the corner here you end up with another turret just behind the door here, and you find everything sort of just tucked away in certain places. There's no real Pacific engine room on this, for example, so it's just all the components are out and about. And as we charge forward to the front here, you've got the front bomb bay as well here with these huge great big missiles that are sat in there, which I love the way this is designed. And this sort of kind of changes that style from sort of combining it from that naval to that like old World War II bomber style with the bomb bays and everything. What I like about this as well is it's got kind of an asymmetrical design in the layout at the front here as well, where it's just maximised the use of space. So on one side of the bomb bay here we have like the heads, so you've got the toilet in here with this like really sort of practical chrome finish, just like easy to wash down as need be, nothing too fancy, just does what it needs to do. And then if you go around to the other side of the bomb bay is then our way of getting past the bomb bay itself in the corridor. So you can see these will come down here, so it's like this almost sort of asymmetrical layout, as though it's like trying to balance where things are. So even though the ship design on the outside isn't asymmetrical, inside they've done it that way for the layout. I've got the bridge off to the left there, which we'll come have a look at in a second here, but as you come around to behind where the toilets were on this side of the bomb bay, we also have the captain's quarters, where there's like a little bunk in there and everything else as well. I'm not sure I want to be a captain right next to the heads, but then it's just kind of still feels like it's just been squeezed in where the space allowed for it, which, you know, feels actually very practical for a military ship. Another turret here right behind the seat for the pilot, so obviously you both can't get through at the same time. Again, if that sort of squeezing everything into the space that's available, which kind of reminiscent of a lot of sort of like if you go on any military naval vessels and everything else, it has that kind of same effect. Another turret right here, up here, just up this little ladder here, and then as you pass through the back here, you will find that you've got a little bit of a storage room, and then we've got space for another 6 bunks berths just behind there, which more of the crew could then be staying on. I love the feeling inside of here. The inside of it is absolutely lovely. Though I'm a little bit mixed about the outside, the inside I love on that ship itself. Right, so here we are coming across the Vanguards now. So these are, there's 4 different designs of ships, different variations. The general Vanguard, the basic Vanguard shell is pretty much the same, so I'm not going to go show it completely for every single one of them. I'll just show you the differences. But there are a number of variants, all which have their own different purposes. So this first one here we got is the Vanguard Hoplite. This is a light troop transport. So if you come in the back here, you can see you've got several troop seats in the back there available for people to sit on, plus a weapons rack off to the right there. I'm guessing this is a short-range troop transport because there's no bunks, there's no long-term amenities, there's no toilet on board. But one of the things I like about these sort of Vanguards is that as you come through to this bit, and all of them have the same design at the front, where you have all the components just easily within reach, just locked behind these panels that can easily just click and it just slides open, and everything you need is just there within arm's reach. Very practical, all in the right locations and everything else like that. I think it's an absolutely fantastic sort of design again in itself. And then once you get forward from here, you will then approach also the front cockpit, where the obviously the pilot would sit as well. Though it doesn't look like there's a lot of viewing space here, once you actually get into that seat, there is a lot more viewing space at the front, we did realise. Also, this is on to the next one here. We have the Vanguard Harbinger, I'll say it properly in a second. This is a heavy fighter version of it. So this is a bit more, I imagine this is a bit more of a long distance heavy fighter as well, because as you come into the back here, you find that there's a toilet here on the right, so you obviously got your amenities. You've got also bunk there, and also you've got a small computer desk engineering station here, along with a little bit of storage and everything else like that. But yeah, this is meant to be a heavy fighter, though I'd imagine, to say, with sort of sleeping facilities. It's designed for long-term distance out in space itself. And one of the things that all of these also have that I didn't cover on the last one when we looked at the Hoplite is they all have a turret as well. They all have a top turret, which in this back area you can gain access to just by going up onto that hatch. And we'll see in a second, it will actually come down and we get the seat swings down into position, like a lot of them do on a lot of the Aegis ships. A lot of the seats just swing out from position, which is really sort of practical, keeps it all hidden away until you actually need it there, and then it brings us up here into the actual turret itself. The next one we're going to look at is... oh, actually, this is the Harbinger. Actually, sorry, I do apologise. This was the Warden. So, yeah, the Harbinger is the next one. But before we look at that, we've got the Quantum Drive at the back here. So you close the ramp up there, and that's how you get to the Quantum Drive. So I just wanted to demonstrate that. So that one was the Warden. Sorry, this one's the Harbinger. So I do apologise on getting my names mixed up there for a second. But this one is the Bomber. So I quite like this one. It's quite a nice design on these. These next two are quite lovely craft, actually, in themselves in the back bits here. So this isn't too dissimilar to the Warden. That's where you can see I got mixed up. It still has a toilet in here and a bunk, so the toilet's in a slightly different position. It's on the left rather than on the right. And all the sort of the practical sort of side of that sort of stuff is over on the left side of the ship, and there's a good reason for that, and that's because on the right hand side, as we'll see in a moment, there is basically an absolutely huge missile. So you've got this little cabinet here where there's basically space for more guns to be stored away, and then yeah, there we are, we have like a missile stroke bomb there, and I love the little with love and the Aegis symbol there sat underneath it on the missile rack there. But yeah, it's supposed to be like basically a bomber, fighter bomber, so it's a little bit got a bit more firepower and everything else. And firing missiles like that, it's going to have a fair bit of firepower. This final one then is the Sentinel. So this is the Vanguard Sentinel, and this is their e-warfare ship. So this one is designed for all sorts of electronic warfare. Though we haven't seen electronic warfare added into Star Citizen as yet, then we can assume it should be coming along at some point with these sort of ships around. And it'll be interesting to see how they do it as well. It'll be, you know, it's a modern warfare technique. Eve warfare is becoming more and more popular. Say popular, no warfare is ever popular, but you know, it's becoming more and more commonplace in the theatre of war. And this ship here, I mean, I just love this design. Like, it's server racks we see in front of us here with the various screens and everything else. I think it's just got this lovely ambience to it. I think the design here is absolutely awesome. Can't say enough about that design itself, you know. And once we've had a look at the Vanguards, we come across to another couple of different designs. So we got here the Avengers, plus a Gladius just over on the front right there, but the rest of these are Avengers. We already had a look at in my first video for Invictus Week, the Avenger Titan, because I ended up with one. But these are a variety of different types of the Avengers here. So this is the Avenger Stalker. So this is going to be a prison transport vessel. So it'll carry a number of prisoners in the back here, not a large many, but there's just a couple of sort of cells there. So it's designed for capturing people. You put them in the cell, you take them off their bounties or return them to prison or whatever you need there. So it's that variation. Other than that, it's not generally different to the normal Avenger here. So you have the door that leads through to the bunk. There's no toilet here, so I suppose you have to use rest stops in the way, which causes a problem then if you've got prisoners. So again, maybe bring a bottle if you're flying this aircraft. Not probably the best bet. The next one of the Avengers. This one is the Warlock. This one is a bit of a unique design in itself, because you can't get through from the cargo bay into the front cabin because of this device here, and this is an EMP generator. So again, going back to that electronic warfare we're looking at here, this one has its own EMP generator that carries along in the back there for use in fight and in combat, which means in order to get into the fighter, the bunk is still there, so to get to it you have to climb in through the front cockpit and then swing around on the seat, and then you're able to actually walk down and get into the main ship itself and get to the bunk there. Obviously that door at the end there is actually sealed shut because we've got an EMP generator in there. Then on this final one of the Avengers they were showing down on the in the Bevic Convention Centre is the Avenger Titan Renegade. So this is the Renegade version of the Titan we showed on the first video. It's a bit like the normal Titan, but it has a bit more of an optimised loadout. This one, like the Sabre Comet we also saw at the beginning, these were done for the Master Flight series by Aegis Dynamics, which is in conjunction with Arena Commander, the flight sim there, that's sort of kind of in that relation. And then this one we're looking at here, this is the Gladius. This is the Aegis Gladius. This is a light fighter. It's quite a common light fighter as well. This is quite regularly seen there. We come through here then to the Aegis Redeemer. So this is a ship that recently has been causing a little bit of a stir because a redesign has occurred, and everyone seems to be much happier with the redesign. It's been turned into this gunship thing here, and so it's recently come back on the radar in the last couple of weeks, essentially, that we started seeing the white box model designs of this. So they got it here on the diagram here. So a few people who've already pre-ordered this thing are getting quite excited that this may be added into the game soon, especially as we now have the model sitting there in the hologram. In addition to that, we also have in the holo display centres, notice the display centres are open again. They were closed during Anvil, but they are now open for Aegis. We have here the Nautilus, which is a mine layer ship here. I'm not so sure on the design of it. I love the idea of a mine layer, and I love the two sort of the top and bottom elements that sort of open up to deploy the mines. It also says it's a mine sweeper as well, so I'll be interested to see how the mechanics go on that, because normally your mine layers and mine sweepers aren't the same craft. And I'll also be interested if it's mine sweeping or mine hunting that it does, because technically that's two different things. If you know anything about naval mine applications, then yeah, mine sweeping is not the same as mine hunting, but apparently it's got the application to do mine sweeping and disarming mines, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Right, so we come on to the final ship of the day, and this is the Hammerhead. This is a heavy gunship, so this is a big capital ship, not quite as big as the Carrack we saw yesterday, but this has certainly a much more military feeling to it than the Carrack. I mean, the Carrack's a bit of an explorer, though it's a military explorer, it is an explorer. The Hammerhead, on the other hand, has these big, huge weapons that you saw on the side there, big cannons and big turrets and everything else like that, and this is designed as a gunship, and I quite like this design. It's not something I would personally probably own, but I like the sort of uniqueness of it. You've got the twin catamaran style hulls there along the side, and it has a bridge underneath as well. So as you can see, we come up on the lift here, and you've got like this catamaran, so you can actually look out here, and that would be, if you were in flight, that's space between you and the other corridor that you can see on the other side there. But as you head back down the back of the ship, we'll start going towards the back to begin with. You have these sort of padded corridors that feel very militaristic, though it doesn't quite get the same grasp, I feel, as the Retaliator does for that sort of enclosed space. But you then have the signage up on there as well. Not sure if you want signage on there if you get boarded, to point out to people where your engine room is and your bridge is, but you know, there's the signage, I think, looks quite cool. Not sure if it's actually practical on a military vessel. But then we have this side turret down here. This is one of the accesses to one of the side turrets. There'll be another one on the opposite side as well. And so we passed by a couple of pods there as well, escape pods. If we come into here, then we have the captain's quarter. Well, this is captain's ready room, so to speak, with a few little things there. And then if you go through to the next room, you'll actually have his sort of sleeping space. Again, quite different to the Carrack in some senses, because this is a little bit more compact, a little bit more towards that sort of military style. But again, compared to, like, say, something like the Retaliator, it feels a bit more spacious than what a military ship necessarily would be. And you've just seen there, we have one of the lifts on board the ship that takes you up to the top deck, and also a turret as well. As you come around towards the back here, then you have these little side rooms as well, which are filled with a variety of systems. So again, if you're having to do repairs on the ship, on the systems, you might need to run up and down the corridor, get into the right components here. And you can see this sort of, they don't open at the moment, but there are sort of like hatches and stuff that would probably open a bit like they do on the Vanguard. I imagine if that, once they finally get in all the repair mechanics gameplay into Star Citizen, like here we got for the radar, as you can see, it's all labelled up. And I imagine you would eventually be able to open that up, so if it gets damaged, you can go in and get it fixed. Then we have the crew quarters, just the one crew quarters. I noticed that with a lot of the ships on here so far, there's only normally just, unless it's a big luxury vessel, it's usually a captain's quarters and a crew quarters, and that's it. Not multiple crew quarters like you would do on a normal warship, but it still has that military feeling. And again, on either side here, we have two heads here. I think one is actually a shower, the one on the other side is actually the toilets. But yeah, you've got that sitting down at the front, the midway towards the back of the ship itself here. But quite a few bunks there, so it is designed to hold quite a few crew on here as well. Though, actually, possibly looking at the number of turrets on here, there's probably more crew are needed than there are bunks. You probably have people doubling up on bunks, I imagine, on this ship. As we progress towards the back here, then we come into this large open space at the back of the ship, and you'll find you've got on either side the engines, which you can see flickering there. And again, what I love about this is it's quite open, it's exposed as well, so it's very easy and quick to get into and access. Not sure how safe it is to have it completely exposed without any proper sort of guardrails there. I mean, someone could easily lose a hand in there, I'd imagine, and goodness knows, you know, that blue particle effect coming off there as to actually how safe that is and whether you should be having some radiation warnings or something being that close to those engines. But I do like the design, I like the look of it. It's something different to be able to actually see the engines exposed in that way on this ship. I suppose it would be easier for repairing it there. But this isn't just an engine room, this big wide open space is also the cargo bay at the same time. So you can see there we have the actual central cargo lift, though you could put a small vehicle on here and transport a small vehicle in the back of this this ship if you wanted to. I don't know if you could try it, you could probably get a stub fighter in there if you wanted to, but I'd imagine it's for mostly cargo. Behind the lift then you have the entranceway out to the most aft point on the ship, which was that turret point we just saw, and then the opposite side of that we have another lift. And this lift brings us up right to the top here and brings us to an engineering room here, or like an observation room that overlooks the whole of the cargo bay. Quite a nice view. I like the view from up here with the slanted window and everything. Being able to look down, you can have a look at whatever's down on the cargo grid down below. As we go around here on the top floor isn't particularly big on this vessel. It's not like the Carrack, which has these sprawling multiple floors. It has one main floor and a couple of two smaller floors, one at the top and one at the bottom towards the front. But this would be the main mess hall here. Yeah, quite dark and everything else, though it's quite a distance away from the crew quarters. You'd have quite a distance to move. And one thing I did notice with this, I mean, this is a storeroom going through here, is that there's no ladders on this ship, which means if there was a power shortage and your lifts went down, how would you get between the decks without another type of access way? I suppose you could float up the lift shafts, but yeah, I would have thought there would have been at least one ladder going up and down here as well. But yes, it is where the other lift is, which then brings you down to the middle of the ship. As we head then back down the front of the ship, passing the lifts that actually take us back out of the ship that we got on board with originally, you'll find that the corridor comes down to the front area here, and you have another cross section like we had just going back from there, where you've got the front side turrets as well. So if you come down to these side bits, you'll find that you've got the door here, and then you see it going through to the side turrets. And those cannons look pretty huge on either side there, so it does feel like a proper military warship in that sense. The only thing I would say, it does feel very spaced out on the Hammerhead. So in one sense it feels militaristic, but in another sense it feels like it's a bit too spaced out and not utilising the space as well as you'd expect a military warship to do so. But yeah, we have this front area here, and these are pods then for storing various suits and everything else, and that's because we have this other weird function here at the front, which is we have this airlock door here, which just opens up into nothing. It's not like the circular airlocks that we see on some of the other ships where you have ship-to-ship docking. This is at the front of the ship. There's no ramp coming off there, there's no lift coming off there. That's just an open door, quite high up from the ground as well. So imagine that's only for use in 0G, for deploying troops in 0G, like if you're having to board another vessel or something. That's what I would imagine it's used for. Are we coming back into, there's a lift just behind where that airlock is on the other side of that corridor, and if we take the lift down, that is what brings us through to the bridge, and the bridge is underslung underneath the Hammerhead here. I quite like the design, I like the idea of the underslung bridge. Again, not sure I would want to fly this ship myself. It's not something I would fly myself. I quite like its inclusion in the game. I think the Hammerhead is a pretty cool ship overall. I think there's a couple of little flaws in it, just in the sense that it's just a little too spaced out in the interior design to feel properly militaristic. If it had been a bit more like the Retaliator in its design, and I think I would have been slightly happier with it. But I love its sort of odd quirks with the catamaran hull, the underneath bridge, and everything else like that. It feels like a real sort of character of a ship, so I really like it on that sense. But that was the third day of the Aegis Dynamics. There will be another day coming up soon, which will have 3 more manufacturers, this time taking over. I think it's Misk, Argo, and one of the others. But in the meantime, I've been Draken, this is the DrakenGameWorks, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye!